Aloha, everyone. Dr. Heather Tucker here. So it's been a week. This week, we actually had the record high of like over 3,000 deaths within a single day of COVID. Things might be shutting down again. There's so much going on in the world, not just in the world, but within our homes. And I wanted to do a video. I just got back off the road teaching the last couple of days. And the message that came this morning for you is, how do you see? Do you see with your mind or your heart or both? I talked about in a couple of videos before how there can be a conflict where your mind will say one thing and your heart will say another, and they're never really on the same accord. Now is the time more than ever to really step into total health, total self-care, total relationships with family, not just surface level relationships like we've used to having, but like the deep level relationships that we're really called to have, especially when we are distant from them. So this whole part about how do we see and how does that even relate to total health? First, let me just share with you a definition. Total health is not just spiritual or physical. I used to think if I prayed as hard as I could to God that He would support in healing my body. Or I thought that if I continued to do as much exercise as possible, that things would be okay. But reality is that total health is spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And I know for me, it was the mental and emotional part that was getting in the way of total success when it comes to health. Health is wealth, yet it's the one thing that we tend to neglect. So there's a power when it comes to being in total rapport with your mind, body, and soul. It allows for God to be able to come in deeper and stronger and work through you. I'm taking this class. Actually, these glasses that I have on right now, these glasses are about eight years old. About 8 years old. I'm taking a class on how to get my vision back. And what's really cool is that these look like 20/20, even though I have a newer prescription that is actually a little too strong for me right now. Because eyesight is not just about our physical eyes. It actually has to do with this whole part about the mental and emotional impacts. It's interesting that there's this doctor, Dr. Bates. He's actually the research behind the class that I'm doing and a couple classes in this. And he says we see with our minds, and it's our minds that control how we see, right? And how we see is a barometer of how we feel. So I went on this journey a long time ago, figuring out how to be able to heal the conflict in my mind. Have you ever been like, part of me wants to do this and part of me wants to do that? Well, it's possible to resolve these conflicts in the mind, body, and soul. And it's about healing the heart wounds and creating a renewed mind and also a healed heart. Together, it makes your stepping into your calling and walking into your destiny much easier. I wish I would have known this a long time ago. And timing is always perfect. God's timing is always perfect. He knows what He's doing. And the thing is, He knows what we're doing. A lot of times we don't. So I'm coming to you today to let you know that it is possible to restore. It is possible to heal the mental and emotional stuff that's going on within you. It is possible to have peace of mind, body, and soul, even in the midst of the calamity that is going on externally, as well as internally, and as well as in your household. The question is how? How deep is what we see? So it's almost like there's a lot of times there's things that we don't want to see. There's things that we want to avoid. And if we continue to avoid the things that we don't want to see, it actually becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. I talk about before, like, so most of the work that I do, I love coaching. I love training. I love speaking and expressing and sharing my truth. And what do you do when you're a speaker and there's some stories that are too difficult to share? You heal, you restore, and you share them anyway. Because the stories that I have are not necessarily for me, they're for other people. Well, yeah, they're for me too, healing and restoring me, but they're also for the impact and empower other people as well. And the same thing for you. There is a calling inside. There is a greatness inside that a lot of times we may be afraid or we may be scared to be able to let it out, right? We may be wanting that courage, right? Like in this video, I used to be terrified of doing videos. Doing this video, there's no fear, whereas there used to be. Because the biggest part about achieving and tapping into your calling is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. The biggest thing that I didn't want to see for quite some time was my own health, right? And my own challenges. I was talking with my husband the other day and he said, what do you do? Like, I was telling him how sometimes we don't want to open Pandora's box. We don't want to go deeper into what's going on. And he said, well, sometimes, when you open the box, you never know what music is going to play. But the question is, what happens if you don't open the box? You don't open the box, you'll still have these same patterns, these same struggles, these same occurrences. So the biggest thing I want to share with you is that your greatest wealth is your peace of mind, body, and soul. And it is possible to heal the past. I know that if you are experiencing some chaos or traumatic experiences right now, more than likely, you're probably like me who's had a life of chaos and pain and experiences like this. And the things that are minor when we're a kid actually become major in life when we're adult and we have no idea. And it's possible to be able to restore our relationships, heal things without even the other person playing a part. Because everybody's on their own journey, and so are you. And when we restore and take back control of our mind, our body, and our soul, especially our mind, the mind is the middle part. This is the reason why I teach communication mastery, because it's how to strengthen the communication with yourself and other people. And the core of that class is really about reclaiming the power of the mind. Healing from the things that have happened that have caused you to feel heavy, right? God said that he will make our burdens light. But what do we do when we still feel the heaviness? And is it possible to be able to rise above that heaviness and totally break free from it? God is calling us in this season to break every chain that is preventing us from stepping into everything that he's called us to be. What are your chains? My chain a lot had to do with my weight. I'm doing total transparency here right now because somebody needs to hear this. I've been looking at, and for those of you who are overweight also, or maybe have had food addictions, emotional eating like me, I've been watching the 600-Pound Life lately. And in this series, the reason why I've been watching is because I've been listening to these stories of how these people have grown up and how it's impacted their size now. A majority of the women who were on the show talk about how they were molested before the age of 5 or 4, right? That happened to me. And what they talked about was gaining weight as a form of protection. Because in my unconscious mind, if I ate and I gained weight and I made myself unattractive, I could feel safer and no one could hurt me. But what's interesting is that I was hurting myself during that process. And what I love to be able to see is how they reclaim control over the things that have happened and they heal from them. And it's totally possible. Now that scar that it was a scab, total scab. And now it's becoming a scar. Almost there. Because that one incident that was so minute led to so many difficulties, trust issues, difficulty in relationships, fear. It created post-traumatic stress syndrome for me. Scared to be close to people. So for those of you who used to be like, okay, there was a time where Dr. Heather was totally there and then she kind of disappeared. It had nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with you. So please forgive me. Anyone who's looking at this video and knew me like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and I was just like, I fleed in the wind. When things got difficult, I gave up. I ran when it was too hard. But the reality is I wasn't really running from you. I was running from me. And there was this poem that I talked about before. It was talking about busy people we are. How quickly do we run? What are we running from? Ourselves? If we continue to run away from the problems will just get bigger. And then we sometimes will forget that they're actually blessings in disguise. So what has happened with Dr. Heather now? Healing all of this stuff from childhood and beyond allows me to be more in the present. And when we have breakthroughs, when my clients and students have breakthroughs, it's such a beautiful thing for them and for me. Because as I support other people in their healing, I also heal. And what I'm loving is that God is breaking every single chain in my life. And now let me tell you, okay, first let me pause this. When I say break every chain, I'm not talking about just cut people off. You know, the people in our life, I know, ladies and gentlemen, you might have some difficulties with marriages and relationships right now. Don't run away from the relationships because they actually are there to grow you. They're actually there to elevate you. And whereas we can sometimes see them as a heaviness, God will show you how they're a blessing if you remain and hold on and take hold and don't go the battle alone. Have support, have the right support. So in this season, what are your chains? What are the chains that need to be broken? What are the unwanted behaviors? What are the things that you've been avoiding, that you've been tolerating? Where do you feel like your boundaries have been violated? Like for that situation, I didn't even know what healthy boundaries were. One incident, multiple incidents. So not even just that, what are other traumas that happen? Death. When someone passes away, especially unexpectedly, it can take us like in a wave of emotions. And actually, it can make us even more not wanting to see. So the situations that happen, if we don't resolve them and we heal from them or we stuff them down, they never really go away unless we decide to let them go. And Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light. Not only that, because especially for those of you who are Christian and for those of you who aren't Christian, it's okay, because who am I to judge anybody else's beliefs? I just love to be able to share mine. And I can appreciate what other people believe too. So for me, he's the way, truth, and the light. And when I recognize that, okay, he's called me to be the way, the truth, and the light too, own it. Believe in it. What I love about this healing is that I feel like me and Jesus are like tight, like a rope twist. Like I can hear him. When I was ready to flee, I clearly heard him say, remain. And I couldn't understand why in that season. We can't understand sometimes what's happening in the midst of the stuff that we're going through when we're going through it. But I promise you, on the other side, you can look back and you're like, man, so glad I made it. So glad I made it. I almost gave up. You have no idea how many times I almost gave up. But God, every single time I wanted to give up, every single time I wanted to give in, he showed me another step. He showed me another door. He showed me another opening. He showed me another possibility. Because right now, it's not just about restoring ourselves. It's also about restoring and healing our families. This is for the kids. This is for our legacy. It's not just about the temporary that's happening. It is about the internal and the longevity impacts. And for those of you who are listening to this, it's almost like, especially not everybody's going to listen to this, and that's good, because not everybody was called to be the chain breaker, to restore the generational curses, to be aware of everything that is going on with the family, to break that chain and break that cycle so it doesn't trickle into our future generations. And especially, people who have gone through great trauma, people have been discriminated for so many things. Visual discrimination is the worst. Just looking at someone and judging them, that is horrible. And sometimes it's not intentional because people have different perceptions of other people in their mind. Perfect example, I was in Greece maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I have no idea. Maybe longer than that. I was in Greece and I was looking at the TV. And the TV was showing the Nutty Professor, the Clumps. And somebody had said something to me like earlier that day, like they had a perception of Black Americans. And then when I'm watching that show, I'm like, oh, maybe this is why. Maybe they haven't had a lot of experience with them. And then they see this TV show and then they think that all Black people and Black families are like this. We have assumptions. We have judgments. We have preconceived notions that we don't even really know about. And the more that we face them, the more that we recognize them, the more that we restore them. Some of our perceptions, they come from our parents, our grandparents, our loved ones. And we don't know what we don't know until we decide to pursue it, until we decide to go after it. So I asked this question, how do you see? Your head or your heart, or both? The question is, are they in the same rapport? Are they on the same page? Or is there conflict? And if there's conflict, and you want to resolve it. See, some people, there's conflict and they just don't want to resolve it. And that's okay. It's okay not to be okay if you decide to want to do that. But if there's conflict and you're like, you know what, Dr. Heather, I am ready to resolve this conflict and to step into every single thing that God has for me. I'm talking about purpose. I'm talking about passion. I'm talking about prosperity. I'm talking about abundance, health. Send me a message. Send me a message and let's talk. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I gotta get ready to go pick up my daughter. Can't wait to see her. I haven't seen her in about 5 days. Next week, my whole family's gonna be back together, getting ready for Christmas. It is a season. This is the season. And one thing that happens is seasons force us to change. This is one of the reasons why usually around this time of year, people are sad, they're depressed, they're lonely, they're isolated, even more so. Because it's easy to be surrounded by people and feel so very alone. And I want to be able to show you that, you know what, you're never alone. You're never alone. You're always supported. Imagine feeling totally supported, never alone, all the time. Walking in your power and being in that place of trusting and not overthinking. Operating out of a place of ease and flow as compared to having to work hard. God didn't call us to work hard. He called us to work smarter. He called us to rest in Him. So therefore, we know that we're covered. It's like, imagine Him holding a beautiful umbrella over you. Like maybe everything is raining down. Maybe hell is kind of wanting to rain down on your parade right now. And He's holding an umbrella just for you, saying, don't worry, I got you covered. I will protect you from the rain. I will keep you safe as you trust in me and be obedient to my will. You know, God said, broad and spacious is the road leading to death and destruction. And narrow and cramped is the road leading to everlasting life. While that road may be narrow, I promise you, while that road may be narrow, it is so powerful, and there's a peace and a grace and an ease that comes like a flood to those who earnestly seek it. And what's really cool is that narrow and cramped road, it doesn't even feel cramped because it creates the peace within that will automatically manifest the peace with others. It's time to be the light. It's time to shine. It's time to elevate with ease and rise up. Because this is the season, whereas we have this calamity going on, we can't be paralyzed and frozen in fear. We have to take action. We have to pursue. We have to achieve. And I say have to because there's so many people in the world that you can impact with your story. This is one of the reasons why I love coaching. It doesn't matter who you are, where you've been, what you've done. You know, it could go on forever. It doesn't matter what your past was. It's about the ability to be able to create a brighter and bigger future for you and your loved ones and your community and your world, if you so desire. So let's chat. Let's talk. You're not alone. It may feel like you're alone, but I promise you, there are so many people struggling with the same things and different things. And there is no problem too great that you and God cannot resolve, heal, transform, and make it something so magical Whew, beyond anything you could ever fathom, beyond anything that anyone could ever fathom. That healing and that restoration is needed in this season. There's no need for, I struggled with a long time imposter syndrome, right? Where as the world saw this, but I didn't want them to really see what's going on. So whereas the world saw, oh my gosh, Dr. Heather's doing all these amazing things, I felt internally this big. And it's like, well, who am I to be able to help people with these relationships that I'm struggling with my own? Well, beautiful thing, when you're working with God and you heal and restore, there is no imposter syndrome. What you see now, ladies and gentlemen, is what you get and more. Because it's okay to be the masterpiece and the work in progress at the exact same time. I said this years ago, but I really see it now. So if you're ready to rise, if you're ready to elevate, I'm looking forward to seeing your message in my inbox. All right, talk to you soon. It's been awesome talking with you today. Have a good weekend. And put in the comments below, what was your biggest takeaway from this message? What's your biggest takeaway? All right, peace.